Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Jason?
Derek here.
So, this Highland Park shooting, there's something different about this, in my opinion, that, you know, there were certain laws in place in Illinois, and there were red flag laws. And why he wasn't red flagged is just shocking. This kid, he threatened to kill himself. Authorities came out. So there's clearly a mental factor here.
Threatened to kill his family, too.
And then, not his family, everybody. He used the word everybody. And the police come and they seize knives and daggers. And somehow it gets sent up to the state, and he's not red flagged. So, you know, we're talking about all of these things that can be done, which, you know, are helpful. But this is kind of a microcosm of a really bigger issue. How do you solve any of this without banning assault weapons? I mean, you can do all these things, but when you don't ban assault weapons, people who want them can get them. I mean, when you think about it, you know, what contraband can you not get in this country?
I agree with you. The fight back from the other side, when you say that, in light of what we have here, which is at the time when the authorities came out, I believe in 2021, they found 16 knives, a dagger, a sword, and they were well aware of him, and they didn't do anything about that.
Well, they apparently sent, I think they sent it to the state, but it never got into the system.
Right. So it was a failure of the process. So the response is there are laws on the books without assault weapons bans that can protect us against a lot of this stuff, but it's not properly enforced. And if they were to enforce the existing laws, we'd cut out a lot of this. Now, you and I may totally agree on assault weapons bans. I do. It's ridiculous people are allowed to have assault weapons. But there is a legitimate, logical fight back from the other side is enforce the laws that are on the books, and then we can talk about maybe infringing on their perception of what the Second Amendment calls for. But don't do that first until we first enforce this.
Yeah, and the other wrinkle of all this is what the family did. I mean, it as
the father
signed off on his co-signed on his son obtaining that weapon legally after those incidents.
After he threatened to kill everybody.
But it's a big feature, right? Because there were no the family was clearly, or at least the father, I won't speak for the rest of the members of the family, were on board with the kid. Whatever he said to cops at the time was, I'm no longer a threat to myself or my family. I'm somewhat rehabilitated from this moment, and I should be able to exist as an ordinary citizen. That's tough to overcome, right? I mean, there are incidents all the time where victims don't press charges and nothing happens. Yeah. We see it in domestic violence cases all the time where the victim doesn't want to press charges, and then something worse happens. We saw it in Nicole Brown Simpson.
Who cares about pressing charges? The father went and co-signed to get him guns.
Yeah. But how do you solve that problem?
I agree, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you can button all of this up so that people who shouldn't have assault weapons don't get them. I just don't see how to do it. Yeah. There are too many flaws in the system, vagaries in the system, holes in the system, and it just seems to me, I mean, again, you look at all these other countries that have video games, that have strife, and nobody else has mass shootings but us, and it's so normalized now. I don't see how, look, I remember in my 20s, how you felt like every cop was looking for somebody smoking a joint and they'd throw you in jail. And it inhibited you. And not to say people didn't smoke, but it was a thing. And it's like if they were just, you're not going to solve the problem even by banning them because people are going to make them, there's going to be black market and everything else.
Make it tougher.
But make it tougher. It's like assault weapons are the root of all of this. And yeah, you want to solve this. I mean, look, I don't know how you solve the mental illness problem. We can't even solve the homeless problem in LA County, much less the gun problem.
But we got to stop the death problem. Yeah. I mean, to me, the immediacy of the problem
and that goes back to assault,
paramount,
and that
right?
goes
We've
back
got
to
over
assault.
300 mass shootings in this year alone.
We are never going to stop every mass shooting, to your point. We're never going to stop every crime. We're never going to stop assault weapons getting in the hands of people that shouldn't have them. We know that. But we can stop some of it.
Yes.
Once in a while, you can stop it. And I mean, it's so cliche and silly, but don't we want to stop one? Don't we want to stop two or three? I mean,
well,
let me ask you,
no. But I'm not saying don't do background checks and red flags and everything
all
else.
of it.
I'm saying do all of that and ban assault weapons.
Well, yes. Why, low-hanging fruit.
What is going on in this country that, look, the Second Amendment is there for a reason, and people have a right to own guns. There are limits to that. There are limits to free speech. There are limits to every right in the Bill of Rights. And why? And the same with assault weapons. I mean, you can't have rocket launching you can't have missiles, right? So then you just start bringing it down to a point. Why would look?
Because the gun lobby has drawn the line. These are guns that are semi-automatic, and we're allowed to have them. And if we get rid of these, the slippery slope is you won't be able to have any kind of weapon, and that's what they've drawn the line at.
There's a relatively small percentage of Americans who are very, very vocal and have their grips and their talons sunk into a large group of politicians. And
why? But why? I mean, look, other people have money.
Yeah.
Why doesn't somebody go to to Congress and say, if the American Rifle Association is giving you $100,000, we'll give you $200,000.
Oh, there are.
But then why? Why is there this?
I can't answer that question. I mean, I can't answer the question about why Mitch McConnell is so adamantly refusing to bring even allow these bills to go to the floor, and is filibustering any type of assault weapons ban. Why isn't there somebody who can pay him off more than the
and when we say pay off, we're not talking about bribing. We're talking about campaign contributions.
Lobbying on the other side.
The difference between lobbying and bribery is a very thin line,
blurry, but
that's all politicians.
But
if we do no answer to the question.
But there's I'm not accepting that. I'm not accepting that.
So let me say it. I don't know the answer to the question.
I don't either.
But I've heard it talked about.
But I don't understand why there's no clear answer.
Well, if we do it though, it will not completely. There will be mass shootings. If we enact all of this. No, I agree with you, but then you will feed the argument of the other side. Will say, look, there's still mass shootings, and now I don't get to own a gun to protect myself, and so forth. So that it'll feed those arguments.
You know what
this
is like? This is like climate change. That everybody has a certain carbon footprint. And you're not going to eliminate it entirely. But as if you reduce it in your life by 30%, everybody's better off. So yeah, there are going to be mass shootings for sure. And there will be mass shootings with, conventional weapons. There might be mass shootings with some assault weapons.
But there will be fewer.
But there'll be fewer.
Right. And don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Right.
That's the guiding light to me.
It isn't fewer enough to justify taking assault weapons out of the hand.
This guy,
and I don't understand
who can have a different opinion. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's truly frustrating, and people are at their absolute wits' end because they just keep happening. We're not even over the Buffalo shooting, and then we have July 4th shooting.
We talked about
it's
this
endless.
Before. If Sandy Hook didn't change minds, the mass slaughter of elementary school kids, kindergartners, for somebody who got their gun legally, nothing is going to change minds. I am totally defeated on this issue, and I know there's
or the Vegas shooter who picked off 50 people at a concert. This was that all over again. We have them endless.
But
Arsenal, 50 people were murdered in that.
Highland Park is just horrendous.
Yeah.
I mean,
same as the Vegas shooter from a building, just picking people off.
The little kid, his parents fall dead on him.
Yeah.
And
horrific.
And
the stuff of nightmares.
And everybody says, "Oh, it's terrible." I mean, these wingnuts who are saying we should be talking about inflation and not gun violence. Idiots.
Idiots. We should talk about
not
idiots. We can talk about more than one thing.
They're more than idiots. They are people who know what really is going on, and all they're trying to do is deflect. They know that they can't defend this. Right. They know it. And so the only way to do it is this stupid, let's talk about inflation and not gun violence.
It's more than stupid because they know. It's disgusting.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Hey, that's a happy way to open. Happy 4th of July, everyone.
I'm sorry, but
I'm with you.
The 4th of July was Highland Park.
It was.
That was the 4th of July. It was Highland Park. It was Pennsylvania. That's what the 4th of July was. And now what's next?
And by the way, that's what every weekend is now. That's all we talk about are these mass shootings because
Buffalo,
they happen
Uvalde.
And to your point, we have the same debates every time, and nothing's done. Although Congress has made some moves, there were strides done. We got to acknowledge that. And now there will be more mass shootings.
It only took thousands of dead people for small strides to be made.
Yeah. Okay. We are going to move on. I found this really, really interesting. Brad Pitt. and we've talked about this before, and we talked about this in the context of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, that you see people in the red carpet and they're glamorous and happy and smiling and beautiful, and they have lives just like us.
Yep.
And they have tragedies, and they have strife, and they have mental struggles. And Brad Pitt, who is in many ways, look, I mean, Brad Pitt's had his issues. We certainly saw a lot of them surface with his divorce with Angelina Jolie. But it's deeper than this. And now he is opening up. He's actually talked about this before, but he's talking about it more. I didn't really know about this.
Face blindness?
Face blindness.
It's a real condition.
Apparently.
I did not know.
Derek's desperate to pronounce it for us. Do you want to give it a shot?
Prosopagnosia? Prosopagnosia?
So this is a condition that affects about 2.5% of the population in varying degrees. And it has to do with underdevelopment, usually weight, in the womb. And it prevents people from looking at somebody's face and recognizing who they are.
Yeah.
And he has this issue.
Apparently even with family members.
With family
according to the article, he has this issue with family members.
He can recognize voices and the way people walk
Sure.
and the way they talk. And so he's able to obviously carry on relatively normally, but he suffers from this, that he can't recognize his best friends that he will see, family members he will see.
And people get angry at him.
People get angry because they don't understand.
They say that he feels they hate him, and they feel
he's aloof and
that he's self-absorbed and all, and that and he's got this condition. And and it's so interesting. And as I was reading this story, I started just thinking about, all of the things that people go through privately, and you make assumptions about their behavior, and you don't know what underlies it. And this is a good example of that.
Yep, he does seem like the man who has it all. And then you find out about something like this, and you see that he suffers from this condition, which I'm sure impacts every relationship he has.
You guys think this, though, is a serious affliction to labor under? To me, I lump this in the category of colorblindness. It is an affliction.
No.
It is true, but it's not something that severely diminishes your ability to enjoy life.
Of course it does. What it does is,
I don't know about that,
Derek, it isolates you. And he even talks about this, that he is so self-conscious about his interactions with people. He even talked about this. He's a loner. He self-isolates. And when you have, listen, somebody with...
He knows who Angelina Jolie, he knows who his spouses are.
But what about
it's about interaction with strangers?
Up and coming in Hollywood, and he meets Harvey Weinstein for the first time, and then the second time, and he has difficulty. He's got to prep for those meetings, like somebody that has other kinds of mental problems, other mental problems.
I'll give you another example. Somebody invites him to a party, and there are going to be 100 people there.
Most of whom he knows.
It's terrifying for somebody knowing that he's going to offend everybody in the room.
Look, it's not cancer.
I know, but I'm trying to categorize where this affliction exists in his life.
Just not a fatal illness doesn't mean that it doesn't.
It's a mental
really
struggle. It becomes a mental struggle that you end up isolating because you just can't deal with the anger that people shoot toward you.
You justify everything you do based on the fact you grew up poor.
But that has had a serious impact on my life.
You don't think this might have a serious impact on his life?
Brad Pitt has ascended to the pinnacle of fame.
He's overcome it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So your idea is that this affliction has so inhibited his life that him ascending to the peak of fame.
Okay,
he is one of the most famous people on the planet. This affliction obviously didn't do...
Are you poor right now?
No.
Okay. Brad Pitt
but I feel it.
Brad Pitt still has this condition. It is more, let me just finish.
Okay.
It is more real to him than your poverty was to you. And I'm not saying the poverty doesn't, because I struggled growing up.
Fair enough. Let's ease up on poverty. The guy went to summer camp.
You were not impoverished, but we had similar upbringings in that sense.
Somewhat, yeah.
And I'm not saying, get over it, because you don't.
It shapes you.
It shapes you.
Absolutely.
And there are all sorts of things that shape you. But to diminish somebody else's struggle, and again, it's something that is with him every day. Yeah. You are not in that circumstance anymore. Yeah. He is.
Okay.
You can't diminish
and
that.
the real disability is growing up with money like I did. That's really what you have to overcome.
Congratulations. Look at what you've ascended to.
God. Okay.
You truly are a marvel, sir.
Okay. I want to talk about the most ridiculous thing. Derek, Actually, Jason, you brought it to my attention. You do this. This is insane.
So I've been going to Dodger games my whole life, and there's a guy by the name of Roger Owens.
I know this.
He's
famous,
even though you're not a sports fan, Harvey, but everybody in Los Angeles knows about this guy.
I know him. He's an institution.
He's an institution.
Yeah.
You grew up in Florida, Derek, and you know about this guy.
Yes.
And what his shtick is that he will be sort of 2 aisles over, and you will flag him down for peanuts, and he will behind the back, over the shoulder, and fire
increasingly elaborate ways.
Yes.
It's a show.
And it's a show, and he's remarkably good at it. Like every kid growing up in LA practiced this at home. You get a bag of peanuts, you throw it to your brother across the room. You can never do it quite as well. He hits people right in their hands every single time. He's great with little kids. When I would go to, he's been at weddings I've been to.
It's the fun of the game.
It is the fun of the game. So the Dodgers have put a stop to this. In fairness to the Dodgers, they hire, as all stadiums do, a third-party company that runs their concessions. This gentleman, Roger Owens, is employed by that group, and they have put the kibosh on this, saying it. And people have reached out to him. News organizations, the LA Times, reached out to the Dodgers and the concession-owning company for comment. Nobody has gotten back to them. But Roger Owens has said that the reason they've done this is they're afraid of liability. They're afraid, even though it's never happened ever, that I'm going to hit somebody in the head and they're going to get injured. So they have put the kibosh on.
Is this some dumbass law firm that has said, "Oh, you've got to worry about this guy"?
It is absolutely a dumbass law firm. And here's the other thing.
It might be a complaint from a fan where it went awry one day
Who
and they said,
does
"You know what?
it?
Let's get rid of this."
There's none of that, though.
None of it.
They talked about that in the Times. There's no proof that anybody has ever complained about it, and certainly nobody's ever gotten hurt about it. Baseball is a dying sport. It is dying. It is getting dwarfed by basketball, football, and others, and they're dying for attendance. And they do stuff like this.
But this
is
bizarre.
bigger.
This is bigger than baseball.
This goes back to just the new way of thinking. I agree.
It's the new way of thinking, and we need a risk-free society.
Yes.
And that will paralyze us. That ruins life.
Yep.
It's like everything involves risk. Driving involves risk. Flying involves risk. Walking involves risk. Everything.
Well, those have huge benefits. Does the man throwing you peanuts have a huge benefit?
Yes,
that's
actually,
the question. Well,
yes.
that's the open question.
And by the way, if you're
walking, you're right, has risk, but we need to get places.
So the only risk that's tolerable is what's essential.
No, risks that have a corresponding benefit.
But
the risks have a corresponding benefit.
The risk of walking is potentially dying in a crosswalk. The risk of the peanut throwing man is potentially, at its worst, causing somebody an abrasion on their forehead.
You're right.
Which, by the way, has never happened.
How do you get an abrasion from peanuts?
Those corners of those bats
yeah.
very, very difficult.
You catch a bumpy nut in the top of the eye? Come on.
So the benefit, although it's not as important as walking, is also offset. It easily offsets the risk. By the way,
going in the ocean. They should ban going in the. Hold on.
Yeah.
They should, because more people have been bitten by sharks this summer than hit in the eye with a peanut. Okay, so you should ban.
I don't know where your stats are from that, but I'll take it.
Ban people from going in the ocean. Right? There's bacteria on the beach, so you should ban people from going to the beach.
Dangerous. It's a menace.
I mean, if there's no life,
you don't want us all wrapped
there
in
is
bubble
no
wrap.
life without risk.
Right.
There's no life without risk. Jump in a swimming pool. I mean, what if you hit your head at the bottom?
Those are death traps.
I would say stay at home, but there's toxins being leached by your drywall.
Let me ask you a question.
We are ruining society.
I don't know this about Roger Owens. He is a famous guy. He's been doing this for the better part of 60 years from the articles I'm reading. So that puts him in his at least
in his
late 70s.
I believe 79.
Is he up to the task of whipping those nuts anymore? Because maybe the restaurant group, and I'm just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit because I agree with you largely. Maybe the restaurant group is like, this 80-year-old man who's probably maybe nearsighted can't fling him like he used to.
I go to a couple games a year. We are always seated in his section. It happens to be where our tickets are. He still throws them on point. My kids love it. The fans love it. I've never seen it go awry. So to answer your question, he's still doing the job, still doing it well.
And by the way,
he's still a peanut vendor.
If he hits somebody in the head once with a bag of peanuts, I mean, seriously. Seriously.
If one person catches a nut in the temple and passes out, though, we're going to be like, why is this guy throwing nuts? What's the upside of the guy throwing nuts?
They're at a fucking baseball game where a baseball can hit you in the head.
We talked about this, by the way.
I mean, what are we talking about?
It's a great point you make, and not just, that's a legal point. Because
what are we talking about?
When you attend a baseball game, you assume the risk concomitant with that game.
You think that's on the back of the ticket, too? Peanuts in the head?
It's not written. It's just like, you assume all risks, and that includes peanuts in the head.
I'm serious. A baseball going 100 miles an hour can hit you in the head, but he can't throw a bag of peanuts. What is going on in this country?
We're removing all the fun from Dodger Stadium.
We're removing all the fun.
It's more than Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, everyone's.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to end with this. I found this kind of interesting. Over the weekend, Travis Scott performed at a concert. He stopped the performance when these people were climbing up a tower to watch him because it was so packed. And they were kind of dangling, and he felt it was risky, so he stops the show, tells them to climb down, and they do, and he continues. So, look.
Wonderful. This is great.
It's great.
There are consequences to the previous tragedy at Astroworld.
So we should talk about what the law is in terms of somebody, I don't want to say correcting their behavior, but maybe heightening their sensitivity or correcting it after there is a tragedy where there are pending lawsuits.
Yeah. None. We want to encourage it.
So, okay, we want to encourage it.
Yeah.
So when these Astroworld cases, if they go to trial, I think most of them are going to settle, but if they go to trial, the plaintiffs cannot use what he did subsequently.
It's called subsequent remedial measures.
Right.
And when so the classic case is there's a spill on the floor, somebody slips and falls, then somebody comes in later and cleans up the spill. The plaintiff in that case would want to use the fact they cleaned it up to prove that they should have done that earlier and that they
knew it was dangerous.
They were negligent by not doing it sooner because they knew the negligence. And the courts have come along and said, no. We want to encourage safe subsequent remedial measures. We want to encourage making things safer, and we don't want to allow that to be used against them later on.
And it makes perfect sense as a public policy measure, right?
Jason, can I ask you a favor?
Yeah.
I want to change your hypothetical because I don't want to disagree with you on this, but I do.
Yeah.
Because my dad owned a liquor store, so I know a lot about this. If somebody breaks a bottle on the floor and there's liquid on the floor, the law is that the store has to clean it up within a reasonable period of time. If they wait too long and it's there an unreasonable amount of time and somebody slips, then the store is negligent. You're not automatically negligent if somebody breaks it and then all of a sudden somebody slips because the store didn't have an opportunity to clean it up. So when you clean that up is relevant in a lawsuit like the one you mentioned. I think the subsequent remedial measures more has to do with Ford having a problem with the car and then subsequently fixing the problem. And you can't say, because you fixed it, that proves you're negligent before.
That works too.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it. See you Friday. Bye.